Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the Old World. It's been a while since we've seen anything new, certainly anything that isn't Bretonnian or Team King for Warhammer the Old World. But Games Workshop has now announced that on Saturday, 23rd of March, the greenskins will be open for pre-order. Now, we know that Games Workshop has had a number of issues with pre-orders. I'm just hoping that things are better for this one. However, let's have a look at what's going to be available in about a week's time. The first thing to look at is the Orcs and Goblins Tribes Battalion. Now, we've looked at this in a video before. It's got 73 models, 31 Orc boys, which can be equipped either with spears and shields or choppers and shields, or double choppers if you like, with a single command set. And there's also 40 goblins, which can be armed with short bows or spears and shields, and they can have more than one command set. So the orcs can only come as one unit if you want full command. Additionally, there's 2 orc boar chariots and various decals and transfer sheets. What do I think overall? Well, these are all old models. There is nothing new in this kit, which is a little bit disappointing. It would have been nice to see something new for this particular box. It's also of note that there are no rule books in this battalion. It's not like the starter set for Bretonnians or Tomb Kings where you're going to get a rule book or anything like that. This is purely models. Now, I've not come across or played with Orcs and Goblins in Warhammer the Old World. However, from my initial observations, I'm not 100% convinced that this is necessarily a kit I would want to go out and buy if I was launching myself into the Orcs and Goblins. Why is that? Well, if I want the funky doohickeys to do with goblins, they're mostly really connected to night goblins. So fanatics and things like that. If I want those who's in the army, if I want squig hoppers, etc., probably don't want common goblins. I probably want night goblins. As for Orc boys, are they particularly brilliant? I've heard mixed bag about those. Very old kit, however, which, as I say, a bit of a shame. The Orc boar chariots, I think, chariots do seem to be looking like they've got a bit of purpose, a bit of punch, so a couple of boar chariots might be a useful addition to an army. But overall, I'm not sure that I would want to use all of the models, or even most of the models in this kit, if I were starting an Orc and Goblin army. So yeah, a little bit of a disappointment there. I think something a bit more optimized would be quite nice. What else have we got? Well, we've got a Black Orc Big Boss. This is, I think, a new model. It's made out of Forge World resin, comes on a 30mm base. Yeah, I quite like the look of this model from what I can see in the picture. It looks like it's got some nice detail. It looks like it's going to be interesting to paint up. So something that I think a number of people want to get their hands on, particularly as it'll have the benefits around being a Black Orc as well. Supporting the force is also an Orc War Boss on a Wyvern. Now, we've heard so much talk about how important dragons are for Warhammer the Old World and how they're going to play a big part, most likely a big part in the meta as it starts to establish itself. So having this Orc War Boss on the Orc and Goblin equivalent of a dragon could well be quite useful. This model also is going to be coming in Forge World resin. There's also a Troll Hag, which is a new model, rules of which will appear in the Arcane Journal. Looking back at some of the other interesting things coming up for pre-order, we've got both Orc and Night Goblin command sets, so some interesting command crew figures for your units. In plastic, we've got a couple of, again, really old kits, classic kits. We've got the Orc Boss's kit, so an Orc War Boss or Boss on a boar and a banner bearer, along with the Orc Boar Boys mob being available as a separate unit. This one looking like it contains 31 models, so the same as you get in the main Battalion box set. We're seeing some classic models returning from the metal range as well. So the old Big Guns Commands and Orc Shaman. Now that Shaman, I think, is an absolutely lovely model that has stood the test of time. And then we've got the Orcs, which go back to those really old days where Orcs were a bit more comedic in their physique, in their look, than the later plastic models. These are definitely fun for people that have got old Hammer armies and want to perhaps expand the ranks without having to pay horrendous prices on eBay. So good to see these coming back in production from fun value alone, if nothing else. Goblins are going to see quite a range of kits available in plastic and metal. So we're looking here at sneaky stabbers, we've got wolf riders, we've got characters. There's also a chariot. So various useful things floating around just there. And I think quite a few of those models will see a place in a number of people's armies. Talking of classics, we've also got the classic ogres. These go way, way back, and I do remember seeing them in the old combat cards and stuff like that the Games Workshop used to produce in years gone by. They've got a lot of character, they look a lot of fun. They might be, depending on to what extent anyway, they've remastered them, might be a little bit small by today's standards, but I look absolutely fantastic. Again, really carrying that fun element that Games Workshop used to have with the Orcs and Goblin army. There's also other things, so we've got your Doom Diver, Bolt Thrower, Rock Clobber, that kind of thing going on as well. Now, it could be said that from a fun value, no Orc and Goblin army would be complete without a giant, and there's going to be a couple of those available. We've got the more classic giant, and we've also got a Bone Grinder giant. Both of these are going to be in Forge World resin. Orcs and Goblins, as part of this entry, will be getting an almanac, so that will allow new ways of using the army. And of course, there's going to be a box of dice and a box of reference cards. I have no doubt that these dice are going to be horrendously expensive, as things like that often are from Games Workshop. But if you want the official dice that are matched particularly to Orcs and Goblin tribes, these will be available. So overall, what do I think? I think if you are brand new to Orcs and Goblins and want to pick up the Battalion box set, this doesn't strike me as the best choices going forward. There's no characters in it. We know there's going to be no characters in these boxes anyway. For any of the factions outside of Tomb Kings and Bretonnians, obviously no books either. But I'm looking at those models and I'm not seeing that they'd immediately be ones that catch my attention and things I would want to use for my army. That being said, the initial releases, there's a lot of stuff that is very interesting, even for someone who's not an Orcs and Goblins player. Those ogres, for example, could fit themselves into a number of forces. You could use them as Chaos Ogres, they could be Orc and Goblin Ogres, they could just be unit fillers for an Empire force or Bretonnian force, for example. So I think there's definitely some play in some of these figures, and there's definitely some things which are grabbing my attention. Now, I'm not currently working on Orcs and Goblins, but definitely some figures here that I think I would bear in mind should I choose to do so in the future. So there we have it, the models coming, and it's lovely to see something that's not Bretonnian or Tomb King and giving us a bit more variety for the armies we can choose to use that are supported by Games Workshop. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening. I am Return to the Old World. If you've enjoyed videos like this and others like it, do consider subscribing. It is the best way of helping a small channel such as this one. Once again, thank you very much for listening. Have a great day.